Listen, while everyone's out here dropping 50 grand on a Toyota RAV4 because some Reddit thread told them to, there are SUVs sitting in used car lots right now that'll outlast a Nokia phone, cost less than a decent vacation, and nobody's talking about them. I'm talking bulletproof reliability, actual space for your stuff, and prices so low you'll think there's a catch. Spoiler alert, there isn't. Today, we're blowing the lid off 5 SUVs that the internet somehow forgot exist. And honestly, that's your advantage. Stick around, because number 3 has a cult following in Alaska that borderlines on religious fanaticism, and I'm about to show you why.
First up, we've got the Hyundai Creta. And I know what you're thinking. A Hyundai? Really? Aren't those the cars my dad said would fall apart after 3 years? Well, here's the thing. Your dad was wrong. And honestly, he probably still thinks Nokia is coming back too, so let's move on. The Creta is Hyundai's not-so-secret weapon in markets outside North America, and has been absolutely dominating in places like India, Brazil, and Southeast Asia since 2015. We're talking hundreds of thousands of units sold annually, which means one very important thing. There's a massive pool of real-world data proving these things just refuse to die. When a vehicle sells in those volumes across that many different climates, terrains, and, let's be honest, questionable road conditions, and people keep buying them, that's not luck, that's engineering that actually works. Under the hood, you're typically looking at either a 1.5-liter naturally aspirated engine or a 1.4-liter turbo, depending on the market and year. Now, I can hear the enthusiasts groaning already. Only 1.5 liters? But here's where Hyundai played it smart. These aren't high-strung, overly complicated motors trying to squeeze out every last horsepower. They're understressed, simple, and built with a philosophy that prioritizes longevity over lap times. The naturally aspirated variant in particular is about as complex as a hammer, which means there's very little that can actually go wrong. No fancy turbochargers to grenade at 80,000 miles, no direct injection carbon buildup nightmares, just a regular engine that does regular engine things reliably for a really long time. Pair that with either a 5-speed manual, a 6-speed automatic, or even a CVT in some miles, and you've got a drivetrain that's been proven across literally millions of miles of collective owner experience. The 6-speed auto specifically is a gem, smooth, responsive enough, and unlike some CVTs from other manufacturers that sound like a dying vacuum cleaner, Hyundai's CVT implementation here is actually pretty decent. And let's talk about something nobody mentions but everyone cares about: space. The Creta is deceptively roomy. You can actually fit adults in the back seat without them plotting your demise by the end of a road trip. The cargo area swallows groceries, luggage, or if you're like me, an embarrassing amount of impulse purchases from that one store you promised yourself you'd just browse. It's the Goldilocks of SUVs. Not too big, not too small, just right for actual human life. Now, let's pump the brakes for a second, because no vehicle is perfect, and if you're hunting for a used Creta, there are a few things you absolutely need to check. First, rust. Depending on where this thing spent its life, check the wheel arches, undercarriage, and around the tailgate. These aren't rust buckets by any means, but neglect is neglect. Second, and this is critical, service history. Hyundai's reliability reputation has done a complete 180 in the past decade, but that reliability is built on proper maintenance. If the previous owner skipped oil changes or thought "it'll be fine" was a valid service plan, walk away. You want to see receipts, stamps, records, evidence that someone actually cared about this thing. Also, pay attention to the suspension. The Creta suspension is tuned for comfort, which is great for daily driving, but if the previous owner treated every speed bump like a launch ramp, you might find worn bushings or tired shocks. A quick test drive will tell you everything. Listen for clunks, feel for wandering, and if it drives like a shopping cart with a stuck wheel, that's your sign to keep looking. Here's the bottom line. The Hyundai Creta is the definition of a smart buy. It's reliable in the way that old Hyundais used to be reliable, it's practical in ways that actually matter, and most importantly, it's affordable. You're looking at used examples that cost less than a weekend at Coachella, and they'll last longer than most friendships formed there too. If you want an SUV that'll start every morning, haul your stuff without complaining, and not drain your bank account every time it needs service, the Creta deserves your attention. But here's the thing, as good as the Creta is, it's just the appetizer, because the next SUV on this list has a reputation so solid, it's literally been used in some of the most remote places on Earth, and it cost about the same as a used iPhone. Stick around, because this one is a game changer. All right, number 2, the Mazda CX-5. And before you roll your eyes thinking everyone knows about the CX-5, let me stop you right there. Yes, people know it exists, but here's what they don't know. This thing is criminally undervalued in the used market right now, and it's basically the automotive equivalent of finding out your quiet neighbor is actually a retired Formula One engineer. Unassuming on the surface, but underneath, pure competence. The CX-5 launched back in 2012, and Mazda did something radical for a mainstream brand. They decided to give a damn. While other manufacturers were churning out soulless appliances with interiors that felt like rental car purgatory, Mazda built the CX-5 with this weird obsession for driving dynamics and quality materials. It's like they forgot they were supposed to be boring and accidentally made something people actually enjoy using. Rookie mistake, Mazda. Rookie mistake. Here's where it gets interesting. Mazda's Skyactiv engine technology, which debuted with the CX-5, isn't just marketing nonsense. The 2.5-liter four-cylinder that most models come with is a masterclass in efficiency and reliability. We're talking about an engine that regularly sees 200,000 miles without major issues, and owners report fuel economy that actually matches what the sticker says, which, let's be honest, is basically witchcraft in the SUV world. The secret sauce? High compression ratios, lightweight internals, and an obsessive focus on reducing friction. It's not trying to be a race car engine, it's trying to be the engine that still works when everything else around it is given up. The 6-speed automatic transmission paired with it is equally impressive. It's not a dual clutch that'll need a rebuild at 60,000 miles, and it's not a CVT that sounds like it's perpetually giving birth. It's a traditional torque converter automatic that shifts smoothly, responds when you need it to, and here's the kicker, it's actually reliable. Mazda sourced these transmissions carefully, and the failure rates are absurdly low compared to competitors. When transmission shops see a CX-5 roll in, they basically shrug and say, probably just needs fluid. That's the dream, folks. And can we talk about how this thing drives? The CX-5 handles like Mazda forgot it was building an SUV and just made a tall car instead. The steering is actually communicative, the body roll is minimal, and you can take corners without feeling like you're piloting a refrigerator on stilts. Is it a sports car? No. Will it make your morning commute feel less like a death march through traffic? Absolutely. It's the difference between tolerating your drive and actually looking for excuses to take the long way home. Plus, the interior quality is legitimately impressive for the price point. Soft-touch materials, intuitive controls, and a design that doesn't look like it was sketched during a corporate meeting about cost-cutting measures. You sit inside and think, wait, this was how much? But hold on, because we need to address the elephant in the room. Or rather, the elephant that should be in the engine bay, but isn't. Rust protection. Early CX-5 models, particularly from 2012 to 2016, have a notorious Achilles heel: rust, specifically around the rear wheel wells, subframe, and underbody. Mazda's rust protection in those years was about as effective as a chocolate teapot. If you're shopping for a first-gen CX-5, you absolutely must get under that vehicle and inspect everything, and I mean everything. Bring a flashlight, wear clothes you don't care about, and look for bubbling paint, surface rust, or worse, structural corrosion. If it's been living in the salt belt, anywhere that sees winter road salt, treat this inspection like you're defusing a bomb. One owner's neglect can turn into your 4-figure repair bill real fast. Second thing, check the infotainment system on 2014 to 2016 models. Some units have a tendency to freeze, reboot randomly, or just give up entirely like they've lost the will to live. It's not a deal breaker, but it's annoying, and replacement units aren't cheap. Test every button, every screen, every function before you hand over cash. Also, listen carefully during the test drive for any unusual noises from the front suspension. There have been scattered reports of premature wear on control arm bushings and sway bar links, especially on vehicles that lived hard lives on rough roads. A clunking sound over bumps isn't necessarily catastrophic, but it's a negotiating point at minimum. Here's the truth about the CX-5. If you find one that's been cared for, with clean service records and no rust gremlins hiding underneath, you're looking at one of the best value propositions in the used SUV market right now.
It drives better than it has any right to. It's genuinely reliable when maintained, and it won't make you feel like you're driving a penalty box. The market hasn't fully caught on to how good these are in the right condition, which means you can still find deals that make you feel like you're getting away with something. But if you thought the CX-5 was a hidden gem, wait until you hear about what's coming next, because the third SUV on this list has a fan base that's borderline fanatical, a reputation for indestructibility that's been proven in literal war zones, and a used market price that'll make you double-check the listing to make sure you're not missing a digit. This one's legendary for a reason. Stay tuned.
Number 3, the Toyota RAV4. And I can already hear you screaming at your screen, wait, you literally started this video roasting people who buy RAV4s. What is this, a betrayal arc? Relax, deep breath. Here's the plot twist. I said people are overpaying for new RAV4s. The used market? That's a completely different story. And if you know which generation to target, you're looking at arguably the most bulletproof SUV investment you can make. This is the vehicle that's been turning skeptics into believers since 1994, and there's a reason you see 20-year-old RAV4s still cruising around like they just rolled off the showroom floor. The RAV4 is Toyota's golden child, the vehicle that basically invented the compact crossover segment before anyone even knew they wanted one. It sold over 13 million units worldwide, which means the collective real-world testing on this platform is more comprehensive than most NASA projects. When something succeeds at that scale for that long, it's not hype, it's physics, it's thermodynamics. It's the uncomfortable truth that Toyota figured out how to build a vehicle that simply refuses to break, even when you forget oil changes exist. Now, let's get tactical, because not all RAV4s are created equal. The third generation, which ran from 2006 to 2012, and the fourth generation from 2013 to 2018 are your sweet spots in the used market. These are the models where Toyota had perfected the formula without overcomplicating things with unnecessary tech. The 2.5-liter four-cylinder engine in these generations is the automotive equivalent of a cockroach. It will survive anything. Chain-driven instead of a belt, which means one less maintenance headache, direct and port injection on later models, which actually keep carbon buildup in check, and power delivery that's smooth, predictable, and utterly drama-free. Will it win a drag race? Absolutely not. Will it start in 10 years when you've ignored half the maintenance schedule? Probably, and that's terrifying and impressive in equal measure. The all-wheel drive system deserves special mention because it's brilliantly simple. It's not some overly complex torque vectoring setup with 47 sensors that'll cost you $3,000 when one inevitably fails. It's a straightforward, on-demand system that sends power rearward when it detects slip and then goes back to front-wheel drive when it doesn't. Low maintenance, high effectiveness, zero pretension. It's the same philosophy Toyota applies to everything. Make it work, make it last, don't get cute. Here's what makes the RAV4 special beyond just the mechanical bits. It's idiot-proof, and I mean that as the highest compliment possible. You can hand the keys to someone who thinks motor oil is a cooking ingredient, and the RAV4 will still soldier on. The interior isn't fancy. Earlier models especially look like they were designed by a committee that was running late for lunch, but everything is where you'd expect it to be. Built with materials that wear gracefully and laid out in a way that doesn't require a PhD to operate. The cargo space is generous enough for actual life stuff. The back seat fits real humans without requiring them to remove their legs first, and visibility is excellent because Toyota didn't sacrifice functionality for aggressive styling. It's not trying to be cool, it's trying to be useful. And in a world of vehicles that prioritize Instagram aesthetics over actual practicality, that's refreshing. But here's where you need to pay attention, because even Toyotas aren't immune to issues when people treat them like disposable appliances. First major concern, oil consumption. Some RAV4s, particularly 2006 to 2012 models with the 2.4-liter engine, and certain 2013 to 2015 models with early versions of the 2.5-liter, have been known to burn oil. And we're not talking a quart between changes. We're talking check your dipstick every week levels of consumption.
This isn't universal, but it's common enough that you need to verify oil consumption history with any used RAV4 you're considering. Ask the seller directly, check service records for frequent oil top-ups, and during your test drive, check the oil level yourself. If it's low and the seller has no explanation, that's your exit cue. Second issue, the infotainment and electrical systems on 2013 to 2018 models can be finicky. Touchscreens that become unresponsive, Bluetooth connectivity that works when it feels like it, and the occasional electrical gremlin that makes random warning lights appear like you've triggered some kind of dashboard Christmas display. These aren't catastrophic failures, but they're annoying, and Toyota's fixes haven't always been permanent. If you're test driving one of these generations, spend quality time with every electronic feature. Pair your phone, test the backup camera, cycle through the climate controls, make sure nothing glitches or freezes. Also, inspect the rear hatch and tailgate area carefully. Water leaks around the rear hatch seal have been reported on various model years, and if left unchecked, that moisture finds its way into the spare tire well and starts creating rust issues. Pop the rear hatch, look for water stains, lift the spare tire cover to check for standing water or corrosion. Here's the bottom line. The RAV4 earned its reputation honestly. It's not perfect, and newer models have gotten expensive enough to make your accountant cry. But in the used market, especially targeting those third and fourth generations, you're getting a vehicle that's been proven across millions of owners and billions of miles. It won't excite you, it won't turn heads, but it will absolutely, positively be there when you need it. And in the world of used SUVs, that kind of reliability is worth its weight in gold. Now, if the RAV4 is the dependable friend who always shows up, the next SUV on this list is the overachiever nobody expected. We're talking about a vehicle that punches so far above its weight class in terms of features and capability that people genuinely don't believe the price until they see it. This one's a sleeper hit in every sense of the word, and you're going to want to hear this.
Number 4, the Subaru Crosstrek. And here's where things get interesting, because the Crosstrek is the automotive world's best-kept secret hiding in plain sight. It's the car that outdoorsy people buy and then never shut up about. And honestly, they're not wrong to be annoying about it. This thing is like if someone took a regular hatchback, gave it a confidence boost, some ground clearance, and the mechanical grip of a mountain goat, then said go forth and embarrass actual SUVs on trails they have no business being on. It's compact, it's capable, and it's priced in the used market like nobody's figured out how good it actually is yet. Subaru launched the Crosstrek back in 2013, and it was essentially their love letter to people who wanted something practical for daily driving but refused to give up on weekend adventures. It's built on the Impreza platform, which means it inherited all of Subaru's legendary engineering DNA, but with enough ruggedness baked in that you can take it places that would make a Honda CR-V file for emotional distress. The ground clearance sits at over 8 inches, which doesn't sound like much until you're clearing obstacles that would scrape the undercarriage off most crossovers. And that symmetrical all-wheel drive system, it's standard. Not optional, not a premium package, standard. Subaru looked at the market, offering part-time AWD as an upsell, and said, "That's cute, we're just making it standard because we're not monsters." Under the hood, you're getting either a 2.0-liter or 2.5-liter boxer engine, depending on the year, and this is where Subaru's philosophy shines through. The boxer engine layout, with its horizontally opposed cylinders, sits low in the chassis, which gives the Crosstrek a lower center of gravity than most SUVs twice its size. That means better handling, less body roll, and a driving experience that feels far more planted and confident than you'd expect from something with this much ground clearance. It's like Subaru's engineers were physics nerds who got really competitive about proving they could defy the usual SUV compromises. The power output isn't going to set any speed records. We're talking around 150 to 180 horsepower, depending on the engine. But here's the thing, it's adequate, and in a vehicle designed for reliability and capability over straight-line speed, adequate is exactly what you want. These engines are under-stressed, which means they're not working at their limits just to move the car around, and that translates directly into longevity. Pair that engine with either a 6-speed manual, which is shockingly rare in the crossover world and an absolute joy if you still appreciate shifting your own gears, or a CVT that's actually been well executed. Now, I know CVTs have a reputation somewhere between Brussels sprouts and dentist appointments, but Subaru's CVT is legitimately one of the better implementations out there. It's smooth, it doesn't drone excessively, and reliability-wise, it's held up far better than CVTs from other manufacturers that shall remain nameless but rhyme with Nissan. And let's talk about the cult following, because Crosstrek owners are a special breed. These are people who genuinely use their vehicles the way the brochure promised. Camping trips, hiking trailheads, ski resorts, gravel roads that don't technically exist on maps, the Crosstrek shows up and performs without complaint. I've seen these things with 200,000 miles still running strong, covered in mud and stickers from national parks, driven by people who look genuinely disappointed when you suggest they might want something newer. That's not brand loyalty, that's Stockholm Syndrome in the best possible way. The interior is practical, bordering on utilitarian, easy to clean, durable materials, and a layout that prioritizes function. It's not luxury, but it's honest, and there's something deeply appealing about a vehicle that doesn't pretend to be something it's not. Now, before you run out and buy the first Crosstrek you see on Craigslist, we need to talk about what to watch for, because even Subarus have their quirks. The biggest concern across most model years is head gasket issues, though this is far more prevalent on older Subaru models than on Crosstrek specifically. That said, if you're looking at first-generation Crosstreks from 2013 to 2017, ask directly about head gasket history. Check for any signs of oil leaks around the engine, coolant consumption, or white smoke from the exhaust. A well-maintained Crosstrek shouldn't have these issues, but if the previous owner skipped maintenance or pushed oil change intervals, problems can develop. Service records are your best friend here. If the seller can't produce them, be cautious. Second concern, the CVT transmission, while generally reliable, does require proper maintenance. Subaru recommends CVT fluid changes, and if those were ignored, you could be looking at premature transmission wear. During your test drive, pay attention to how the CVT behaves. It should be smooth and responsive. If you feel shuddering, hesitation, or hear whining noises, that transmission is trying to tell you it's been neglected. Walk away unless you're prepared to factor in a transmission service, or worst case, a replacement. Also, check the suspension and undercarriage thoroughly, especially if the vehicle has clearly lived an adventurous life. Crosstreks are capable, and owners tend to push them, which means you might find worn suspension components, damaged skid plates, or evidence of off-road impacts that weren't properly addressed. A pre-purchase inspection is non-negotiable on these. Get a mechanic to put it on a lift and check everything underneath. You want to know what you're buying, not discover unpleasant surprises 3 months in. One more thing. Earlier Crosstreks, particularly 2013 to 2015 models, have been known for excessive oil consumption. It's not every unit, but it's common enough that you need to verify this isn't an issue with the specific vehicle you're considering. Check the oil level yourself, ask about consumption history, and look for service records showing frequent oil top-ups. If the engine's burning oil, that's a ticking bomb you don't want to inherit. Here's what it comes down to. The Crosstrek is the vehicle for people who refuse to compromise. You get daily drivability, genuine off-road capability, standard all-wheel drive, and legendary Subaru reliability, all wrapped up in a package that costs less used than most people spend on a vacation. It's not flashy, it's not fast, but it's deeply, fundamentally competent in ways that actually matter. If you want an SUV that'll take you anywhere and get you home safely, the Crosstrek deserves serious consideration. And that brings us to the fifth and final SUV on this list. This one's the wild card, the underdog that nobody saw coming, and it's got a story that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about reliability and value. This is the closer, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. Let's go.
All right, number 5, the grand finale, the Kia Sportage. And I need you to put down whatever preconceptions you're clutching about Kia, because we're about to have a come-to-Jesus moment about one of the most underrated, unfairly dismissed, and genuinely impressive SUVs in the used market. This is the redemption story nobody expected, the glow-up that makes every other comeback look amateur. If you still think Kia makes disposable econo boxes that fall apart after the warranty expires, congratulations, you're living in 2005. And I have some stunning news about smartphones and streaming services you're going to want to hear about too. The Kia Sportage has been around since 1993, but let's be real, the early generations were forgettable at best. Kia was finding its footing in those first attempts with the automotive equivalent of a rough draft. But then something shifted. Around the third generation, which kicked off in 2010, and especially with the fourth generation starting in 2016, Kia stopped playing it safe and started playing for keeps. They hired Peter Schreier, the designer behind the Audi TT, and suddenly the Sportage went from, I guess that exists, to wait, that's a Kia? The styling got aggressive, the build quality shot up, and the engineering became genuinely competitive. This wasn't Kia catching up anymore, this was Kia arriving. Let's talk powertrains, because this is where the Sportage proves it's not messing around. Depending on the generation and market, you're looking at a range of engines from a 2.0-liter naturally aspirated four-cylinder all the way up to a 2.4-liter or even turbocharged options on higher trims. The 2.4-liter engine in particular is a workhorse. It's not fancy, it's not cutting edge, but it's robust, and it's been deployed across multiple Kia and Hyundai models with proven durability. We're talking engines that routinely hit 150,000 miles and beyond without major mechanical drama. The secret? Conservative engineering. Kia learned from the mistakes of others. They didn't overcomplicate things with exotic materials or overly aggressive tuning. They built an engine that does its job reliably day in and day out without demanding constant attention or expensive repairs. The transmission options include a 6-speed automatic or, on some models, a dual clutch setup. Now, dual clutch transmissions have a reputation for being temperamental, and early DCT implementations from various manufacturers were genuinely problematic. But Kia's dual clutch, especially in later Kia Sportage models, has proven far more reliable than its competitors. It shifts quickly, it's responsive, and failure rates are surprisingly low when maintained properly. The conventional 6-speed auto is equally solid, smooth, predictable, and built to last. Either way, you're getting a transmission that won't be the reason you're visiting a mechanic. And here's where the Sportage becomes genuinely compelling: the value equation. In the used market, Sportages depreciate faster than competitors like the RAV4 or CR-V, not because they're worse, but because badge snobbery is real and people still haven't updated their mental software about Kia's quality leap. That depreciation is your advantage. You can pick up a well-equipped Sportage with low miles, loaded with features like heated seats, panoramic sunroof, advanced safety tech, and a premium sound system for thousands less than a comparable Toyota or Honda with a basic trim. You're getting luxury-adjacent equipment at economy prices, and if that doesn't make financial sense to you, I don't know what will. The interior quality, especially from 2016 onward, is legitimately impressive. Soft touch materials where they matter, intuitive control layouts, and tech integration that doesn't feel like it was bolted on as an afterthought. The ride quality is comfortable without being floaty, the cabin is quiet at highway speeds, and the overall driving experience feels far more refined than the price tag suggests. It's not trying to be a BMW, but it's also not punishing you for choosing practicality over prestige.
But let's pump the brakes and get serious, because buying a used Sportage requires doing your homework. First and most critical, engine fires. Yes, you heard that right. Certain Sportage models, particularly 2011 to 2013 and some 2017 to 2021 units with specific engine variants, have been subject to recalls related to engine fire risks caused by manufacturing defects in the Theta 2 engines. This is not something to take lightly. Before you even consider buying a used Sportage, run the VIN through Kia's recall database and verify that any outstanding recalls have been completed. If the seller can't provide proof of recall work being done, don't walk away, run. This is a safety issue, full stop, and it's not worth gambling on. Second concern, the dual-clutch transmission, while generally reliable, can develop shuddering or harsh shifting if the transmission software wasn't updated or if clutch wear has set in. During your test drive, pay close attention to how the transmission behaves in stop-and-go traffic. Smooth engagement is what you want. If you feel vibrations, hesitation, or clunky shifts, that's a red flag. Some of these issues can be addressed with software updates or clutch replacement, but you need to factor that into your purchase decision and negotiate accordingly. Third, inspect the electronics meticulously. The Sportage is loaded with tech, which is great when it works, but can be a headache when it doesn't. Infotainment glitches, backup camera malfunctions, and intermittent sensor failures have been reported across various model years. Test every single electronic feature during your inspection: navigation, Bluetooth connectivity, USB ports, climate control, all driver assistance systems. If something doesn't work, assume it's expensive to fix and adjust your offer or keep looking. Also, check for oil leaks around the engine and transmission. Some Sportage owners have reported seepage from valve covers and oil pan gaskets as vehicles age. These aren't catastrophic, but they're annoying and can lead to bigger problems if ignored. Pop the hood, look underneath, and check for any signs of fluid leaks. A clean, dry engine bay is what you're hoping to see. Here's the unfiltered truth. The Kia Sportage represents one of the best value plays in the used SUV market if you're smart about which one you buy. The reliability is there, the features are there, and the prices are lower than they have any right to be, simply because some people still can't let go of outdated prejudices about the brand. Kia's 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty on new models was their way of putting money where their mouth is, and that confidence was earned through real engineering improvements and quality control. In the used market, you're capitalizing on that quality while benefiting from depreciation that works in your favor.
So there you have it, 5 overlooked SUVs that are reliable, capable, and priced like the market forgot they exist. The Hyundai Creta with its no-nonsense durability, the Mazda CX-5 that drives like it costs twice what it does, the Toyota RAV4 that continues to prove why it's legendary, the Subaru Crosstrek that turns weekend warriors into full-time believers, and the Kia Sportage, the underdog that grew up and became genuinely impressive while nobody was paying attention. If this video helped you see the used SUV market differently, do me a favor, smash that like button because it genuinely helps more people find content like this. And if you're serious about getting the best deal possible on your next vehicle, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're breaking down the cars everyone overlooks, the deals everyone misses, and the knowledge that saves you thousands. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these 5 you're most interested in, or if there's another overlooked vehicle you think deserves the spotlight. I read every single comment, and your suggestions drive future videos. Remember, the best car deal isn't the one everyone's fighting over. It's the one you found because you knew where to look. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Now go find yourself a ridiculously reliable SUV for dirt cheap and enjoy watching everyone else overpay for the same thing with a different badge. You've earned it.